What's going on, guys? My name is Johnny Trumbucas. Welcome back to the shop. In this week's video, we're going to make this shoe bench with Kit & Co. Kit & Co provides a variety of different hardware kits that are great for the beginner woodworker or even the seasoned woodworker to add a different touch to their projects. Let's get started. I'm building this bench out of red oak, which is 1.25 inches thick, but similar results can be achieved with plywood or 2x material, such as 2x4s or 2x6s. I start by squaring off one end of the board using the circular saw. I thought about using a straight edge to reference my saw off of, but I decided to try to cut to the line freehand. Being slow and steady produces great results, but being slow also produces these burn marks. We'll clean those up later. Then I measured to cut this board down to its final length of 6 feet, marked the square lines, and cut this end just like the other side. Now I can start cutting the strips that will make up the bench top. The red oak, like I mentioned earlier, is 1.25 inches thick, and I'll be cutting these strips to 2 inches wide. There's a total of 10 strips that make up the seat. While cutting those strips, I cut an extra one that will be used to tie all of those strips together and attach them to the legs. A handsaw makes quick work of cutting these two pieces down to their final length of 18 inches long. These are all the parts that will make up the seat of the bench. Next, I add a chamfer to the 4 long edges of these slats. This is to make the seat a little more comfortable and to reduce its bulky look. I then sand all the pieces to 220 grit. Since the grain patterns and color of each slat vary slightly, now's a good time to arrange them in a way that they look best, and also number them on the end grain just so you don't accidentally mix them up. I'm using 1/2 inch plywood as spacers to get consistent spacing between all the slats, and after squaring up the edges, I clamp them together to make sure that they don't move on me. I measured 12 inches in from the edge, and that's where I'll be attaching my cross supports. I pre-drill the holes in both pieces and slightly over countersink them. That way the heads of the screws sit slightly below the surface of the wood and don't have a chance to possibly interfere with the legs. I use these strips as a guide to drill the holes in the right place. I start with the 2 outermost slats and screw the cross supports in place so that they don't move. Then I drill the rest of the holes and screw down the cross support. Paste wax helps a ton here to allow the screws to go in easier. And of course, this is done to both sides. The kit that I'm using on this project is the standard coffee table hardware kit from Kit & Co. It includes these steel legs and a mixture of different corner brackets. These 3-way brackets are extremely versatile, and I have quite a few ideas on how to incorporate them into future projects. Now I can pre-drill the holes to attach the legs. And I'm just using some short screws just to keep them temporarily attached. I do come back later and use 1.25 inch screws, and that's the longest I can use without coming out the other side through the slats. I wanted the umbrella bin to flow seamlessly with the bench top, so I need a few more strips. Next, I sand these down to their final grit since it's going to be much harder to sand them when they're glued up into a panel. To lay out the panel, I'm using the same plywood spacers I used for the top. The making of this panel is almost identical to the bench top, but instead of screwing the cross supports in place, I'm gluing them on. Screws would also work fine here if you screwed them in from the backside so that they weren't visible. While the glue is drying, this is a good time to trim the overhanging on the strips to be flush with the sides of the panel. And for that, I'm just using a Japanese pull saw. The umbrella bin has of course 4 sides to it, so I need 2 of these panels that will make up the front and back of the bin. Now I move on to making the short sides of the umbrella bin. I start by resawing the board in half since it didn't need to be so thick. After the bandsaw, the cuts get cleaned up on the planer. You can also use a belt sander here, but a planer makes quick work of this. These are probably my favorite brackets that are included in this kit. The triangular shape helps prevent racking, which is perfect for something like this that's going to get a ton of use. To assemble this bin, I start by attaching these brackets and making sure they're flush with both edges in the corner. The brackets hold the corners together, and the rest of the edge is glued to the side pieces. Since the brackets are holding this side closed, we only need clamps on the other side. However, it is a good idea to clamp together the bracket side as you're driving the screws in place to make sure the joint is fully closed. While the glue on the umbrella bin is drying, we can focus on the key tray. I start by attaching the bottom piece to the front long side of the tray. With that clamped in place, I then attach the shorter side pieces the same way. With the glue on the umbrella bin dry, I temporarily clamp it in place on the bench. This helps me align it, pre-drill the holes, and attach these 2 parts using this long corner bracket. There's one more bracket included in this kit, and that's these 3-way square brackets. I screw them onto the corner of the key tray, and that's how I'll attach it to the rest of the bench. But first, I glue on this strip to make 4 walls, that way keys won't slip out through this space. Attaching this piece was a bit tricky because my impact driver didn't quite fit in the tray and allow me to screw the screws in straight. I came back later off camera with a short stubby screwdriver to address this. Also off camera, I spray painted the heads of these screws black to better match and blend in with the rest of the hardware. Next, I took everything apart and applied 3 coats of white bond poly. And with that, it's all done. If you want to experiment with one of these furniture kits, you can click the top line of the description to get your own. This build might be a little on the complex side, but Kit & Co provides a variety of different furniture kits that will help you build pretty much any piece of furniture. If you have any questions about this build, leave them down below and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.